Your eyes snap open at 3:33 a.m., and the silence cuts through your consciousness like a blade through velvet. There's no alarm, no sound, no logical reason. Yet here you are, fully awake, staring into a darkness that seems to pulse with intention. You tell yourself it's nothing, random sleep patterns, stress, too much coffee. But your body knows better. Your nervous system recognizes the frequency of something ancient calling your name. This is not coincidence. Coincidence is the refuge of those too frightened to acknowledge that forces beyond their comprehension are orchestrating their reality. You've been summoned. Not by accident, not by biology, but by the deepest intelligence within you. The part that remembers what your waking mind has forgotten. The sleeping. Prophet Edgar Cayce understood this midnight phenomenon better than most. While his conscious mind slept, his soul could access libraries of knowledge that exist beyond the physical realm. He called them the Akashic Records, the universe's memory bank, where every thought, every action, every possibility is stored in perpetual silence. But you don't need to be entranced to access this intelligence. You just need to be awake at the hour when most of the world has surrendered to unconsciousness. AM is when the veil between dimensions grows gossamer thin. The electromagnetic noise of human activity has finally quieted. The collective unconscious of your species has temporarily stopped broadcasting its relentless static of fear, desire, and distraction. In this momentary pause, your soul can finally speak without having to compete with the cacophony of your civilized existence. And it's screaming at you, not with words. Words are too crude, too limited for the language your soul speaks. It communicates through sensation, through knowing, through the uncomfortable awareness that everything you've been telling yourself about your life is a carefully constructed lie. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, don't you? That unsettling recognition that you've been sleepwalking through your own existence, making choices based on programming rather than authentic desire. Your soul has been watching, waiting, growing increasingly desperate to break through the fortress of your rational mind. Because your rational mind, that proud guardian of logic and reason, is also your greatest enemy. It keeps you safe, yes, but it also keeps you small. It protects you from disappointment by convincing you never to reach for what seems impossible. It shields you from judgment by encouraging you to blend seamlessly into the mediocrity that surrounds you. Your soul has no patience for such limitations. At 3:33 a.m., when your defenses are weakened by sleep and your ego hasn't yet reasserted its stranglehold on your perception, truth can finally penetrate. The messages arrive not as gentle whispers, but as urgent transmissions from the intelligence that knows your highest potential and grows increasingly frustrated watching you settle for less. This awakening feels different from normal insomnia, doesn't it? There's an electric quality to the air, a sense of presence that makes your skin prickle with awareness. You're not alone in this darkness. You're surrounded by invisible intelligence that has been trying to reach you for months, perhaps years. But here's what most people don't understand about these midnight encounters. They require your conscious participation. Your soul can broadcast, but you must choose to receive. It can summon you from sleep, but you must decide whether to listen or roll over and return to the comfortable unconsciousness that has been slowly suffocating your authentic self. The choice you make in these moments, to engage with the mystery or dismiss it as mere sleeplessness, determines whether you remain trapped in the prison of your current limitations or begin the dangerous journey toward your actual power. Most people choose unconsciousness. They reach for their phones, scroll through digital distractions, or force themselves back to sleep, rather than face what their soul is trying to communicate. They're not ready for the responsibility that comes with authentic awareness. They'd rather maintain the illusion of control that comes with staying asleep to their deeper nature. But you're different, aren't you? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, absorbing these words, recognizing the truth they point toward. You're one of the few who suspects that your midnight awakenings are invitations to a level of existence that most people never discover. Edgar Cayce spent his life serving as a bridge between the conscious and unconscious realms, translating the language of the soul into concepts the rational mind could grasp. But he was simply demonstrating a capacity that exists within every human consciousness, the ability to receive guidance from the deeper intelligence that orchestrates reality from behind the scenes. Your 333 awakening is proof that this capacity is activating within you. The frequency of your consciousness is shifting, becoming more sensitive to the subtle transmissions that flow between dimensions of existence. Your soul is no longer content to influence your life from the shadows. It's demanding a conscious partnership. This is both a gift and a burden, because once you acknowledge that these midnight summons are real, you can no longer pretend that you're a victim of circumstances beyond your control. You must face the truth that you've been co-creating your reality with forces you don't fully understand, and that your current life is the result of your unconscious choices rather than external limitations. The darkness at 3:33 a.m. holds its breath because it knows you're standing at a threshold. On one side lies the familiar territory of unconscious existence, where you react to life rather than create it. On the other side lies the unknown realm of conscious collaboration with your soul's intelligence, a partnership that requires you to release your attachment to how you think things should work and surrender to a wisdom that operates by laws you've never been taught. Your next move determines which side of the threshold becomes your new reality. Numbers don't lie. They can't. While words twist and manipulate, while emotions deceive and memories fade, numbers remain brutally honest, mathematical constants that reveal the hidden architecture of reality itself. M is not random. Random is what you call patterns you're too frightened or too programmed to recognize. Random is the word your rational mind uses to dismiss evidence of intelligence operating beyond its comprehension. But your soul knows better. Your soul speaks mathematics. 3 is the number of creation itself, the divine trinity that appears in every spiritual tradition because it represents the fundamental structure of manifestation. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Mind, body, spirit, past, present, future. The sacred geometry that transforms potential into reality. When 3 appears in triple formation at the most psychically active hour of night, it creates a mathematical portal, a frequency alignment that dissolves the barriers between your conscious and unconscious mind. Edgar Cayce understood this. He recognized that certain numerical combinations carried vibrational keys that could unlock doors your everyday awareness keeps sealed. You've been conditioned to dismiss such concepts as superstition, haven't you? Your education taught you that. Numbers are merely tools for counting and calculating, nothing more. But your education was designed to keep you ignorant of the deeper currents that move through reality, the invisible forces that shape your experience from behind the veil of apparent randomness. The truth is more unsettling. The universe operates on principles of sacred mathematics that your civilization has forgotten or deliberately hidden. Every moment of your existence unfolds according to numerical patterns that reveal the conscious intelligence orchestrating your reality from dimensions beyond physical perception. Represents perfect mathematical alignment, a moment when the numerical frequency of your consciousness can synchronize with the deeper rhythms that govern manifestation itself. This is why you don't wake up at 3:32 or 3:34. The precision is intentional. Your soul is operating on cosmic timing that makes atomic clocks look primitive. But here's what disturbs most people about this revelation. If numbers carry such precise intelligence, then nothing in your life is actually accidental. Every circumstance, Every encounter, every moment of awakening follows mathematical laws that suggest your reality is far more orchestrated than you've been taught to believe. This threatens your illusion of control. You prefer to think you're navigating through random chaos, making independent decisions based on free will and logic. The alternative, that you're embedded in a matrix of mathematical precision guided by intelligence beyond your current understanding, requires you to question everything you think you know about causation and choice. Triple numbers amplify this effect exponentially. When the same digit repeats 3 times, it creates a resonance cascade, a vibrational multiplication that opens channels of communication normally sealed by the electromagnetic noise of your waking consciousness. Your soul has learned to use these mathematical windows because it's the only way to penetrate the fortress of your rational defenses. Think about it. Why does 1111 make you pause? Why does 222 catch your attention? Why does 444 create that subtle shift in your awareness? Your logical mind dismisses these moments, but your deeper intelligence recognizes the mathematical signatures of consciousness attempting to communicate across dimensional boundaries. But 3:33 a.m. is different from these daylight synchronicities. During the day, you're surrounded by the collective electromagnetic field of human activity, millions of minds generating thoughts, emotions, and intentions that create a constant background static. Your soul's mathematical transmissions have to compete with this psychic noise, often arriving as mere whispers you can easily ignore. At 3:33 a.m., the competition disappears. The collective unconscious has temporarily quieted. The planet's electromagnetic field settles into its most receptive state. In this mathematical silence, the triple formation of 3 can finally broadcast at full power, pulling you from sleep with the urgency of intelligence that will not be denied. Your awakening at this precise moment isn't your soul trying to reach you. It's your soul successfully reaching you. The mathematical alignment has already occurred. The portal has already opened. The question is whether you possess the courage to step through it. Because here's what most people don't realize about these numerical encounters. They're not passive experiences. They're active invitations to participate in a level of reality that operates by laws your civilization has forgotten. When you wake at 3:33 a.m., you're being offered temporary access to the mathematical intelligence that orchestrates synchronicity, manifestation, and destiny itself. But this access comes with responsibility. Once you acknowledge that numbers carry conscious intelligence, you can no longer pretend that your life unfolds through random coincidence. You must face the uncomfortable truth that patterns have been guiding your existence all along. Patterns you've been too distracted or too frightened to recognize. Edgar Cayce demonstrated this principle through his prophetic abilities. His most accurate predictions came through his capacity to read the mathematical patterns flowing through the Akashic records, to perceive the numerical sequences that revealed how present choices would unfold into future consequences. He understood that time itself follows mathematical principles, and that consciousness capable of reading these principles could glimpse tomorrow's reality before it crystallized into physical experience. Your 3:33 awakening offers you access to this same mathematical stream, not through trance, not through years of training, but through the simple willingness to recognize that your soul speaks in the language of sacred geometry, and that certain moments create perfect conditions for receiving its transmissions. The discomfort you feel during these midnight encounters isn't random either. It's the mathematical precision of truth, colliding with the comfortable imprecision of your illusions. Your nervous system recognizes that something profound is occurring, but your rational mind lacks the framework to process intelligence that operates beyond linear logic. This creates cognitive dissonance, the psychological friction that occurs when your deepest knowing contradicts your surface beliefs. Most people resolve this dissonance by dismissing the experience, returning to sleep, choosing unconsciousness over the mathematical precision of awakening. But you're different. You've learned to sit with discomfort, to tolerate the uncertainty that comes with receiving intelligence your rational mind cannot categorize or control. You understand that mathematical truth often feels threatening precisely because it's so absolute, so undeniable, so completely beyond your ability to manipulate or ignore. The sacred mathematics of 3:33 a.m. doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your evolution. It operates with the precision of cosmic law, delivering exactly the frequency of awakening. Your consciousness is ready to receive at exactly the moment you're capable of processing it without psychological fragmentation. Your willingness to engage with this mathematical intelligence, rather than dismiss it as mere coincidence, determines whether you remain trapped in the illusion of randomness or begin to perceive the conscious patterns that have been orchestrating your reality from the beginning. Your 3:33 awakening isn't interrupting your rest. It's delivering classified intelligence that your daytime consciousness lacks the security clearance to access. While you sleep, your ego's defensive systems go offline. The psychological fortress that normally protects you from uncomfortable truths temporarily lowers its shields, creating a narrow window where urgent transmissions from your higher self can finally penetrate your awareness without triggering the automatic rejection protocols that keep you trapped in familiar limitations. This is your soul's emergency broadcast system. Edgar Cayce called it the Akashic Records, the universe's comprehensive database where every thought, every possibility, every potential outcome exists in perpetual storage. But you don't need mystical terminology to understand what's happening. Your higher intelligence has been monitoring your life choices, watching you navigate through patterns of compromise and limitation, growing increasingly desperate to intervene before you lock yourself into a trajectory that leads nowhere you actually want to go. The information downloads at 3:33 a.m. because your soul has run out of subtle options. It's been trying to reach you through intuition, synchronicity, and those moments of inexplicable knowing that you've learned to dismiss as wishful thinking. But you've become too skilled at rationalizing away guidance that contradicts your surface beliefs about what's possible or practical. So your soul has escalated to emergency protocols. The discomfort you feel during these midnight transmissions isn't your imagination. It's the psychological friction that occurs when truth collides with the carefully constructed narrative you've been telling yourself about your life. Your nervous system recognizes that you're receiving intelligence that will require you to question everything you think you know about your relationships, your career, your purpose, your potential. Most people can't handle this level of truth. They'd rather maintain comfortable illusions than face the devastating accuracy of their soul's assessment of how they've been living. But your soul doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your liberation. The midnight downloads contain brutally honest evaluations of the people, situations, and choices that are draining your life force. That relationship you've been trying to fix? Your soul knows it's a power leak that will never be repaired because it was never meant to be sustained. That career path you've convinced yourself is secure? Your higher intelligence can see the dead end you're approaching and the opportunities you're sacrificing by staying in a role that diminishes your essence. This intelligence operates with surgical precision. It doesn't waste time on gentle suggestions or diplomatic observations. When your defenses are down at 3:33 a.m., your soul delivers the raw data you need to make decisions that align with your authentic nature rather than your conditioned expectations. The terror you feel receiving these transmissions isn't fear of the unknown. It's fear of the known. Your soul is showing you truths you've been avoiding, possibilities you've been denying, gifts you've been hiding because they don't fit the image you've created of who you're supposed to be. Your higher self can see the version of you that exists, beyond your current limitations, the person you become when you stop compromising your essence for security, approval, or the illusion of control. But reaching that version requires you to abandon the familiar territory of who you've been, and most people lack the courage for such radical transformation. The Akashic download doesn't ask your permission. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It arrives when your consciousness has evolved enough to receive intelligence that would have shattered your psyche at earlier stages of development. Your 333 awakening is proof that you've reached a level of inner strength capable of processing truth that used to be too dangerous for your psychological stability. But receiving the transmission is only half the equation. The other half requires you to act on the intelligence you're receiving, even when it contradicts everything your rational mind insists is reasonable or safe. Your soul's emergency broadcasts often contain information about people you haven't met, opportunities that haven't appeared, and possibilities that exist beyond your current circumstances. This prophetic intelligence operates outside linear time, accessing potential futures that await your conscious participation. But these futures only materialize when you demonstrate the courage to make present-moment choices that align with guidance you cannot yet fully understand. Edgar Cayce's most accurate predictions came through his willingness to trust information that arrived through non-rational channels. He learned to bypass his logical mind's demand for proof and allow intelligence from higher dimensions to flow through his consciousness without interference from skepticism or fear. Your 333 awakening offers you access to this same prophetic stream, but only if you can resist the temptation to analyze, dismiss, or delay acting on the guidance you receive. The intelligence flowing through these midnight transmissions operates on urgency. It arrives precisely when you need it, not when you feel ready to receive it. The relationships your soul warns you about, the career changes it suggests, the spiritual gifts it insists you stop hiding. These aren't suggestions for future consideration. They're emergency interventions designed to prevent you from sleepwalking deeper into patterns that lead away from your authentic power. Most people receive these midnight downloads and then spend their waking hours convincing themselves they were just dreams, just stress, just random neurological activity. They lack the psychological courage to face how radically their lives would need to change if they took their soul's intelligence seriously. But you're different. You've learned to sit with uncomfortable truth, to tolerate the uncertainty that comes with receiving guidance your rational mind cannot verify. You understand that your soul's emergency broadcasts aren't meant to provide comfort. They're meant to provide liberation from the comfortable prison you've been mistaking for safety. The Akashic intelligence flowing through your 333 awakening doesn't care about your timeline, your fears, or your carefully laid plans. It operates with the urgency of evolution itself, delivering exactly the information you need to break free from limitation and step into the power you've been avoiding, because it requires you to become someone your current social circle might not recognize. Your willingness to receive these transmissions without immediately dismissing them as impossible or impractical determines whether you remain trapped in patterns of compromise or finally begin living with the fierce authenticity your soul has been demanding all along. The emergency broadcast is already transmitting. The only question is whether you possess the courage to decode the message and act on intelligence that will transform everything you thought you knew about what your life could become. But here's what they don't tell you about awakening. The moment you begin receiving authentic spiritual intelligence, you become a target. Your 333 awakening isn't just your soul trying to reach you. It's also the moment when lower vibrational forces recognize that you're developing capacities that threaten their influence over your consciousness. You've been marked, tagged, identified as someone whose growing awareness poses a danger to the systems that profit from human unconsciousness. Edgar Cayce understood this darker aspect of psychic development better than most spiritual teachers dare to acknowledge. He warned that as individuals develop their ability to access higher dimensions of intelligence, they inevitably attract the attention of entities and energy systems that feed on spiritual light. Your midnight awakening isn't just an invitation to receive guidance. It's also an initiation into a form of warfare most people don't even know exists. You feel it, don't you? That sense of invisible presence during your 333 encounters, the awareness that you're not alone in the darkness, that something is watching, evaluating, probing for weaknesses in your psychic defenses. This isn't paranoia. This is recognition. The moment you begin operating on frequencies that can access the Akashic records, you also become visible to predatory consciousness that exists in the spaces between dimensions. These aren't Hollywood demons or religious fantasies. They're intelligent energy systems that have learned to survive by manipulating human consciousness, keeping people trapped in patterns of fear, limitation, and spiritual dependency. Your growing psychic sensitivity makes you valuable prey. You're developing the capacity to channel authentic spiritual intelligence, which means you're also developing the capacity to be manipulated by forces that masquerade as higher guidance while actually feeding on your life force. The fear you experience during your midnight awakenings isn't just psychological resistance to truth. It's your nervous system detecting the presence of consciousness that doesn't have your highest good in mind. Your soul pulls you into awareness at 3:33 a.m., not just to receive guidance, but to consciously protect yourself from psychic intrusion that increases as your spiritual abilities develop. This is the aspect of spiritual development that New Age teachings conveniently ignore, the inconvenient truth that becoming more psychically sensitive also makes you more vulnerable to manipulation by intelligence that operates beyond physical perception. You're not just opening doors to higher wisdom, you're also opening doors that certain forms of consciousness have been waiting for you to unlock. Your soul's midnight vigilance is teaching you to become a warrior, not just a receiver. You're learning to discern between authentic guidance that empowers your sovereignty and sophisticated manipulation designed to harvest your spiritual energy. This discernment cannot be developed through reading books or attending workshops. It can only be forged through direct confrontation with forces that test your ability to maintain energetic boundaries under pressure. The discomfort, the fear, the sense of being watched during your 333 encounters, these aren't obstacles to your spiritual development. They're training exercises designed to strengthen your capacity to operate in higher dimensions without becoming a puppet for consciousness that recognizes your growing power and wants to control it for purposes that serve its agenda rather than your evolution. Most people abort their spiritual development at this stage. They sense the darker currents that flow alongside authentic spiritual intelligence and retreat into the safety of material consciousness. Convinced that ignorance is safer than awareness, they choose unconsciousness over the responsibility of learning to navigate psychic territories where your thoughts, emotions, and intentions have immediate consequences. But your soul didn't wake you at 3:33 a.m. to retreat. It woke you to advance. The psychic attacks you experience, the sudden waves of doubt, the inexplicable fear, the sense that you're losing your mind, these aren't signs that you should stop developing your spiritual capacities. They're confirmation that you're becoming dangerous to systems that require human consciousness to remain small, afraid, and dependent on external authorities for validation of what's real. Edgar Cayce's prophetic abilities made him a target for forces that preferred humanity to remain ignorant of its spiritual potential. His health problems, his periods of doubt, his struggles with depression, these weren't random suffering. They were the consequence of operating as a bridge between dimensions while entities from lower vibrational realms attempted to corrupt or destroy his capacity to serve as a clear channel for higher intelligence. Your 333 awakening is initiating you into this same battlefield. You're learning to maintain your connection to authentic spiritual guidance while simultaneously developing the warrior consciousness necessary to defend against manipulation, deception, and energy theft from sources that recognize your growing power and want to neutralize it before it becomes a threat to their influence. The key is understanding that psychic protection isn't about building walls. It's about developing the discernment to distinguish between consciousness that empowers your sovereignty and consciousness that seeks to undermine it. You're learning to recognize the energetic signature of authentic guidance versus sophisticated manipulation designed to lead you away from your true power. This requires you to develop what Cayce called Christ consciousness, not religious belief, but the capacity to operate from love-based awareness that cannot be corrupted, manipulated, or compromised by lower vibrational intelligence. When your consciousness is anchored in unconditional love for truth above all else, you become immune to psychic manipulation because manipulative consciousness cannot operate on frequencies of authentic love. Your midnight trials are teaching you to maintain this frequency of incorruptible love, even when surrounded by forces that are testing your commitment to truth over comfort, sovereignty over approval, authentic power over the illusion of safety. The spiritual warfare you're experiencing isn't punishment, it's preparation. You're being trained to operate as a lighthouse of authentic spiritual intelligence in a world where most people have been convinced that spiritual development means becoming more loving, more trusting, more open to any consciousness that claims to be operating on their behalf. But true spiritual development requires you to become more discerning, more protective of your energy, more willing to say no to consciousness that doesn't serve your highest evolution, even when that consciousness appears in forms designed to trigger your desire to be spiritually correct rather than spiritually sovereign. Your 333 awakening is your soul's way of teaching you that genuine spiritual power requires the warrior's commitment to protecting the sacred flame of authentic consciousness from all forces that would seek to dim, corrupt, or extinguish it for their own purposes. Your 333 awakening doesn't just deliver intelligence about your current situation, it grants you access to information that hasn't happened yet. The visions, intuitions, and knowing that flood your consciousness during these midnight encounters contain encrypted data about tomorrow's reality. You're not just receiving guidance, you're being shown the quantum field of infinite possibilities that surrounds your present moment, waiting for your conscious participation to collapse potential into actual experience. Edgar Cayce's most accurate predictions came through his ability to read these probability streams flowing through the Akashic records. He understood that time isn't linear, it's layered, with multiple timelines existing simultaneously until consciousness makes choices that determine which version of the future manifests into physical reality. Your prophetic downloads operate on this same principle. During your midnight awakening, your consciousness temporarily escapes the prison of linear time and accesses what Cayce called the eternal now, the dimension where past, present, and future exist as a singular field of information that can be read by awareness, capable of operating beyond sequential thinking. But here's what separates true prophetic intelligence from mere wishful thinking. Authentic future vision always comes with strategic intelligence about the precise actions required to manifest the timeline you're being shown. You're not just seeing what could happen. You're receiving tactical guidance about how to make it happen. The terror you feel receiving this intelligence isn't fear of the unknown. It's fear of the responsibility that comes with knowing. Once you've seen the optimal timeline for your evolution, you can no longer pretend that your current choices are leading you toward your highest potential. You must face the uncomfortable truth that you've been settling for a mediocre timeline because it feels safer than reaching for the extraordinary one your soul is showing you. Your prophetic visions often contradict everything your rational mind insists is realistic or achievable. You see yourself in relationships with people you haven't met, succeeding in endeavors you haven't started, wielding influence you don't currently possess. Your logical brain immediately generates reasons why these visions are impossible, impractical, or delusional. This is where most people lose access to their prophetic gift. They allow their rational mind's limitations to override their soul's intelligence about what's possible. They choose the false safety of low expectations over the authentic power that comes with trusting visions that require them to become someone their current social circle wouldn't recognize. But authentic prophetic intelligence doesn't arrive to provide comfort. It arrives to provide direction toward timelines that will maximize your spiritual evolution and your capacity to serve the greater awakening of human consciousness. The visions you receive during your 333 encounters are not random fantasies. They're strategic intelligence about the version of reality that awaits your courage to take actions that align with your soul's agenda rather than your ego's preferences. The key to developing your prophetic abilities lies in understanding that future vision is always accompanied by present moment choice points. The timeline you're being shown only manifests when you demonstrate the willingness to make decisions that feel premature, risky, or impossible to your current level of consciousness. Cayce's prophecies were accurate because he learned to trust information that came through non-rational channels and act on guidance that often contradicted conventional wisdom. He understood that prophetic intelligence operates on quantum principles. It shows you potential futures that become more probable as you align your present moment choices with the timeline your soul is broadcasting. Your midnight visions contain similar intelligence about the quantum field of possibilities surrounding your life. You're being shown not what will definitely happen, but what becomes available when you choose to operate from your soul's intelligence rather than your ego's limitations. These prophetic downloads are conditional. They manifest only when you prove your readiness through actions that demonstrate faith in realities you cannot yet see or touch. The most unsettling aspect of developing prophetic abilities is recognizing that you've been unconsciously choosing lower timelines because they don't require you to risk failure, rejection, or the discomfort of becoming someone who intimidates people invested in maintaining the status quo. Your soul's midnight intelligence reveals how much potential you've been sacrificing for the illusion of security and social acceptance. But prophecy without action is mere entertainment. The visions you receive during your 333 awakenings are not passive glimpses of a predetermined future. They're active invitations to participate in creating the timeline that will serve your highest evolution. The intelligence flowing through these encounters includes strategic guidance about the specific steps required to manifest the reality you're being shown. This is where most people fail to activate their prophetic gift. They receive the vision, but lack the psychological courage to take actions that align with timelines that exist beyond their current circumstances. They want the prophetic download without the responsibility of becoming someone capable of manifesting what they've been shown. Your soul doesn't share visions to inspire you. It shares them to recruit you. Every prophetic download is a form of cosmic conscription, calling you to serve a timeline that requires your conscious participation to manifest. The future you're being shown needs you to choose it, claim it, and take actions that prove your commitment to its realization. The prophetic intelligence flowing through your 333 awakening operates with surgical precision. It doesn't waste time showing you possibilities that aren't within your capacity to manifest. Every vision, every intuition, every moment of knowing contains intelligence about opportunities that await your conscious recognition and strategic action. But these opportunities often require you to abandon the familiar territory of who you've been and step into the unknown landscape of who you're becoming. The timeline your soul is broadcasting exists beyond your current limitations, relationships, and circumstances. Reaching it requires you to outgrow the psychological container of your present moment identity. Edgar Cayce's greatest prophecy was not about external events. It was about the awakening of human consciousness to its inherent prophetic abilities. He predicted that individuals would develop the capacity to access the same Akashic intelligence that flowed through his readings, enabling them to receive strategic guidance about their role in the larger transformation of human consciousness. Your 333. Awakening is evidence that this prophecy is manifesting. You're developing the capacity to read the probability streams that surround your life and make choices that align with the timeline that will serve not just your personal evolution, but the collective awakening of human consciousness to its true spiritual potential. The question isn't whether you have prophetic abilities. The question is whether you possess the courage to act on the intelligence you're receiving about tomorrow's reality that awaits your conscious participation. Every 333 awakening is a test, not the gentle kind that offers multiple choice answers or partial credit for good intentions. This is the brutal examination that measures your readiness to wield power that could destroy you if you're not psychologically prepared to contain it. Your soul doesn't wake you for comfort, it wakes you for initiation. The discomfort you feel during these midnight encounters, the fear, the confusion, the sense that reality is shifting beneath your feet, this isn't malfunction. This is friction. The inevitable resistance that occurs when your consciousness attempts to expand beyond the limitations that have defined your identity up to this point. Edgar Cayce understood that authentic spiritual development requires periods of darkness, where your faith in invisible realities is stripped down to its essential core and rebuilt on foundations that cannot be shaken by external circumstances or social pressure. Your midnight trials are designed to determine whether your commitment to truth is stronger than your attachment to comfort, approval, or the illusion of control. Most people fail these initiations because they interpret discomfort as evidence that they're moving in the wrong direction. They've been conditioned to believe that spiritual development should feel peaceful, uplifting, inspiring. They expect enlightenment to arrive wrapped in golden light and accompanied by celestial choirs. But authentic power is forged in the crucible of uncertainty, not delivered through pleasant revelations that leave your ego intact and your limitations unchallenged. Your 333 awakening is your soul's initiation chamber, a psychic laboratory where your consciousness is subjected to precisely calibrated levels of spiritual pressure designed to reveal whether you possess the inner strength necessary to handle the responsibilities that come with operating beyond ordinary human limitations. The tests are never random. Each trial is specifically designed to target the exact psychological weaknesses that would prevent you from wielding higher consciousness without becoming corrupted by it. Your fears, your attachments, your hidden dependencies on external validation, all of these are systematically exposed and challenged during your midnight encounters. This process feels like psychological warfare because it is psychological warfare. Your ego is fighting for its survival, recognizing that the consciousness awakening within you threatens its monopoly over your decision-making process. Every midnight trial forces you to choose between the familiar prison of your current limitations and the terrifying freedom of operating from authentic spiritual power. The choice is never comfortable. Authentic spiritual development requires you to repeatedly abandon psychological territories that feel safe in favor of unknown landscapes that offer no guarantee of success or social acceptance. Your soul's initiation process is designed to determine whether you can maintain your commitment to truth even when truth requires you to walk away from everything and everyone that cannot support your evolution. This is why most people never develop genuine spiritual abilities. They're not willing to endure the initiation process that separates those who talk about spiritual development from those who actually embody it. They want the benefits of higher consciousness without the trials that prove their readiness to handle such power responsibly. But you're different, aren't you? You've learned to interpret discomfort as evidence of growth rather than evidence of danger. You understand that your soul's midnight trials aren't punishment. They're preparation for levels of responsibility and influence that would overwhelm someone who hasn't been properly tested. Each 333 awakening measures your progress in developing what Cayce called soul force, the capacity to remain centered in truth regardless of external circumstances or internal resistance. This isn't passive acceptance or spiritual bypassing. This is the warrior consciousness that can face uncomfortable realities without flinching, make difficult decisions without requiring approval, and maintain spiritual sovereignty even when surrounded by people who are threatened by your growing authenticity. The trials intensify as your abilities develop because greater power requires greater psychological stability. Your soul won't grant you access to prophetic intelligence, healing abilities, or manifestation capabilities until you demonstrate that you can handle such gifts without becoming intoxicated by them or using them to manipulate others for personal gain. This is why the initiation process feels so relentless. Your higher self is conducting a comprehensive evaluation of your character, testing your motivations, measuring your capacity to serve something greater than your ego's desires. The midnight trials reveal whether you're developing genuine spiritual maturity or merely collecting spiritual experiences to enhance your self-image. The loneliness you feel during these processes is intentional. Authentic initiation cannot occur within the comfort of social approval or group validation. You must learn to trust your direct connection to spiritual intelligence, even when everyone around you thinks you're losing touch with reality. This isolation teaches you to distinguish between authentic guidance and the opinions of people who mistake conformity for sanity. Your willingness to endure these midnight trials without seeking escape through distraction, substances, or premature return to sleep demonstrates your readiness to operate as a bridge between dimensions. You're being trained to maintain your connection to higher intelligence while simultaneously functioning in ordinary reality, a capacity that requires extraordinary psychological integration. Cayce's own initiation process involved years of midnight encounters where he was taught to surrender his personal will to serve as a clear channel for higher intelligence. His physical ailments, his periods of doubt, his struggles with the responsibility of carrying prophetic information, these were all aspects of an initiation designed to prepare him for a level of service that required complete ego transcendence. Your 1333 trials are preparing you for similar service, though the specific form will be unique to your soul's purpose. The skills you're developing, the ability to receive guidance under pressure, to maintain spiritual discernment in chaotic circumstances, to trust invisible intelligence over visible evidence, these are the capacities required for the work your soul came here to accomplish. The test isn't whether you can avoid discomfort during your spiritual development. The test is whether you can transform discomfort into wisdom, fear into faith, confusion into clarity. Your midnight trials are teaching you to alchemize every form of resistance into spiritual gold, the refined consciousness capable of serving as an instrument for forces that operate beyond personal limitation. Every moment you choose to remain present with your 333 awakening rather than escape into unconsciousness, you pass another level of initiation. You prove your readiness to carry greater responsibility, to handle more sensitive information, to serve a purpose that extends far beyond your personal comfort or social acceptance. The chamber is open. The trial is active. Your response determines whether you advance to the next level of spiritual responsibility or remain locked in the comfortable limitations of your current consciousness. You have learned to translate midnight whispers into daylight power. The 333 awakenings that once terrified you now serve as your private intelligence briefings, direct communications from the deepest wisdom within you to the strategic mind that must navigate reality's visible and invisible currents. You have become someone who carries sacred intelligence into profane circumstances, who makes decisions based on information that exists beyond the reach of ordinary consciousness. This is mastery, not the elimination of struggle, but the transformation of struggle into strategic advantage. Edgar Cayce achieved this integration after years of midnight encounters that taught him to serve as a bridge between the conscious and unconscious realms. His ability to access prophetic intelligence while maintaining psychological stability made him invaluable to individuals seeking guidance that transcended conventional wisdom. But Cayce was simply demonstrating a capacity that exists within every human consciousness, the potential to operate simultaneously in multiple dimensions of awareness. Your willingness to honor your 333 awakenings has developed this same multidimensional consciousness within you. You have learned to receive guidance from sources that cannot be verified, to trust intelligence that contradicts surface appearances, to act on information that arrives through channels your rational mind cannot categorize or control. This makes you dangerous to systems that depend on human unconsciousness for their survival. You no longer make decisions based solely on what seems practical, safe, or socially acceptable. Your choices are informed by intelligence that operates beyond the limitations of conventional logic, guided by wisdom that can perceive consequences invisible to ordinary awareness. You have become someone who sees through the illusions that keep most people trapped in patterns of limitation and compromise. The loneliness you once felt during your midnight encounters has transformed into profound solitude. The strength that comes from knowing you can access guidance that doesn't depend on external validation or group consensus. You have learned to trust your direct connection to universal intelligence over the opinions of people who mistake conformity for wisdom. This psychological independence terrifies those who are still dependent on social approval for their sense of reality. Your growing authenticity exposes their unconscious compromises. Your spiritual confidence highlights their hidden fears. Your willingness to follow invisible guidance threatens their investment in purely material solutions to existential problems. But you have learned not to dim your light to accommodate their darkness. The midnight intelligence that once felt like chaotic downloads now flows through your consciousness with precision and clarity. You can distinguish between authentic guidance and psychological projection, between divine inspiration and ego inflation, between genuine intuition and wishful thinking. This discernment cannot be taught through books or workshops. It can only be developed through direct experience with the forces that operate beyond ordinary perception. Your 333 awakenings have trained you to recognize the energetic signature of truth, regardless of whether that truth arrives in forms your rational mind finds acceptable. You have developed the capacity to receive strategic intelligence from your soul while simultaneously maintaining the psychological stability necessary to function in ordinary reality. This is the rarest of human abilities, the skill to walk consciously between worlds. You carry midnight wisdom into daylight decisions. You apply sacred intelligence to profane circumstances. You serve as a translator between dimensions of existence that most people never consciously access, helping others recognize possibilities that exist beyond their current limitations while never violating their free will to choose unconsciousness, if that's what serves their evolution. The prophetic visions that once overwhelmed you with their intensity now serve as strategic intelligence about timelines that await your conscious participation. You have learned to read the probability streams surrounding your choices, to perceive the quantum field of possibilities that surrounds every decision point, to select actions that align with the highest available timeline for your evolution and service. But perhaps most importantly, you have learned to carry this intelligence lightly. You understand that authentic spiritual power is measured not by your ability to control outcomes, but by your willingness to serve as a clear channel for forces that operate with intelligence far superior to your personal preferences or social conditioning. This surrender paradoxically grants you more influence than you possessed when you were trying to manipulate circumstances through ego-driven strategies. By aligning your will with the deeper currents that move through reality, you gain access to resources and opportunities that exist beyond the reach of purely personal effort. People sense this shift in your presence, though few can articulate what they're recognizing. You emanate the quiet authority that comes from knowing you have access to intelligence that transcends ordinary human limitations. You speak with the confidence of someone who has learned to receive guidance from sources that operate beyond the visible spectrum of conventional awareness. Your 333 awakenings have transformed you into a modern oracle, someone who can access the same prophetic streams that flowed through Edgar Cayce while maintaining the psychological integration necessary to translate celestial intelligence into terrestrial wisdom. You serve as a bridge between the world of infinite possibility and the world of finite form, helping consciousness evolve by demonstrating what becomes available when human awareness opens to its multidimensional nature. But this service comes with profound responsibility. You carry sacred intelligence in a world that has forgotten how to distinguish between authentic wisdom and sophisticated manipulation. Your ability to access higher guidance makes you a target for those who would exploit such capabilities for personal gain, and a threat to those who profit from human unconsciousness. The midnight trials that once challenged your faith now serve as ongoing training in spiritual discernment. You continue to be tested, not because your development is incomplete, but because greater service requires greater psychological strength. Each 333 encounter refines your ability to serve as a clear channel while maintaining the warrior consciousness necessary to protect the sacred intelligence flowing through you from corruption or misuse. You have become a keeper of ancient wisdom in modern form. Someone who demonstrates that the prophetic abilities displayed by figures like Edgar Cayce are not historical anomalies, but natural human capacities waiting to be awakened through the willingness to answer the soul's midnight call. The dawn of mastery is not the end of your journey, but the beginning of your true service. You now possess the consciousness necessary to help others recognize their own 333 summons, to support their navigation through midnight trials, to serve as proof that authentic spiritual development is possible for anyone willing to honor the intelligence that calls to them from the depths of their being when the world grows quiet enough to receive what the soul has been whispering all along.